crashing the economy, right? Training today. A soft landing, I think about, how hard I had to work on my landings. And what happens when you land is you're literally pointed, like you're literally diving right into the runway. And then you at the last minute, you kind of pivot upward, and then you try to do it in a way where it's smooth. And so, so the term soft landing means a lot to me right now, because I'm really trying to have my landings be soft. But anyway, so people believe that we're in a soft landing phase. However, there is a distinct possibility that we may actually have a hard landing that it just hasn't happened yet. There are some that believe, you know what? No, this is not true. The economy is going to get kicked in the butt because they did increase interest rates at a really rapid pace. And when they increase interest rates, what it's doing is it's pulling back demand for stuff. And when demand drops, prices drop. That's how they were creating the disinflation. Disinflation is where you still have inflation. It's just not as high as it was before. Deflation is when you have negative inflation. So deflation is different from disinflation. So inflation is still here. They're just hoping that it can be at a regular pace. So it's like driving a car down the road. You're not stopping the car. You're just slowing the car down. So that's what they've been trying to do. So one of the things that is happening here that's really interesting is that, and one of my friends, Madam President, actually made this connection that I thought was really interesting, is because she was talking about the writer's strike and how many jobs will be lost from this writer's strike. And she noted something that I agreed with, which was that the government really wants more unemployment. The government doesn't want everybody to have a job, and the reason they don't want that is because when everybody has a job and everybody's doing well, the economy is really strong. And right now, what's really kind of awkward and unfortunate is that in order to slow down inflation, they also have to slow down the economy. And one of the ways to slow down the economy is to increase unemployment. It sounds crazy. It sounds contradictory. It sounds like they shouldn't want increased unemployment, but that's what it is, because one of the components of inflation is wage inflation. And so effectively, because there was all this, there was a tightness in the labor market, meaning people had lots of job opportunities and stuff. It pushes wages up because companies are outbidding each other to get employees. So there are, from a philosophical standpoint, there are some people who are questioning this belief by the Federal Reserve that we should aim for 2% inflation, because they see the economic damage that can occur when you try so hard to reduce inflation that you end up causing people to lose their jobs and wrecking the economy in the process. But here's the problem. If they just sort of forgot about that and just sort of let inflation go out of control, well, then now you've got Venezuela. Now you've got, World War II Germany, or Zimbabwe was a few years ago, where, it's at the point where everything is insanely overpriced. So you go buy some bread on Tuesday and it costs you $2, and then you buy it on Wednesday and it's $8, stuff like that, right? So you don't want that either, right? So it's a delicate dance. I think that the stock market over the next 2 to 3 years is a place you do not want to miss. You do not want to miss this stock market over the next 2 or 3 years. Again, unless something crazy happens, every single bone in my body tells me that this market is headed up. Also, every bone in my body tells me that that Bitcoin is headed up. Right. So there's so much opportunity here. I'm telling you guys right now, it's already happening. You've already seen it. You already saw NVIDIA damn near double, I think, in a very short period of time because of AI. I think it's going to happen in a lot of sectors, a lot of industries. Make sure you're consistent with that. All right. So let me see here. The next question came from, now someone asked, what happened to your Instagram? Yeah, my Instagram disappeared. They took it down. I was reading Dr. Claude Anderson's book, The Black History Reader, and I read about immigration policy being bad for Black people. And I think they define that as hate speech, that if I say anything about immigration policy that isn't consistent with whatever the Democrats have told us, or I don't know, that's like hate speech. It wasn't. I was reading from his book, and then we also talked about affirmative action, and I mentioned that affirmative action has benefited white women more than anybody else, and so their policies, I think, are that you cannot specifically identify in any ethnic group of people. So if I say something about white men or white women or whatever, or even Black people, if I say Black people, we have to do better with wealth, technically that's a violation of their terms. So our long-term plan is, we're still on Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. So feel free to follow me there. Also, We do have a social media platform, Blag Enough, BLAGGENUF. We decided to go ahead and invest in that. Thirdly, if you text the word stock to 31996, not only will I send you lots of free stuff just for being on the list, because we want to make sure you're wealthier and smarter and happier. But in addition to that, it allows us to be connected without having to worry about the Instagram police deciding that, that what we said was inappropriate or something like that. I don't care about what's appropriate. I want us to learn what we need to learn. And so we're going to keep on reading Dr. Claude Anderson's books. I'll never stop doing that. But, sometimes there's consequences and it's okay. All right. So let's see. Otis McDonald, off topic. I want to change my prime class payment date to the 3rd. There we go. Good question. If you have any questions about anything related to customer service in the Black Business School, somebody type this email in. It's support@theblackbusinessschool.com. If you email support@theblackbusinessschool.com, they can take care of you. I'll say it one more time: support@theblackbusinessschool.com. Don't forget the THE. Being new to the stock world, as Antoinette, not sure how I handle it when you give us a stock you're buying. My question is, should I buy and hold or buy and sell at what percentage? Antoinette, I'm going to tell you this. I'm a believer. Again, stock picking and stuff is kind of a philosophy thing. It's like picking clothes. I might like sweaters and you may like skirts, right? And it really, as a man, I don't want to wear a skirt. Not to say a man can't wear a skirt. We all different kinds of people. I'm not judging, but really at the end of the day, it's a preference thing. And so the best way I can teach you about investing, when to sell, when to buy, is not so much to tell you for sure, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to buy. This is when you must buy it. This is what you have to sell. This is when you must sell it. Rather than doing it that way, which would be biased by my own preferences and my own scenarios, I would rather give you the conditions that tell you when it's appropriate to consider selling or whatever the case may be. So let me just say this. I start off with the assumption that when we buy something, our goal is to just hold it and own it. Because that is one of the most fundamental aspects of building wealth. That's where wealthy culture comes from. Literally, and I talk about this in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, that rich people why do we call them rich people? Why, if a man, answer this in the chat for me. Give me a yes or no. If a man owns nothing, would that be a rich man? Would you consider that to be a rich man if a man owns nothing? Yes or no? Is that a wealthy man for you? I'll let you kind of answer. I want to give you some time because I want us to think this through. Simple questions, simple answers help us understand complex ideas. Okay. So Albert says yes, but everybody else says no. Aisha says no. Someone else says he could still be rich. If everything is in someone else's name. Okay, that's true. That's a good point. So if a man owns nothing, and let's say he owns no rights to anything. So even because remember, if it's in somebody else's name, you still own something. You just put it in somebody else's name, right? So let's think about it in a straightforward fashion. Let's assume we're not doing any sort of accounting tricks or whatever. If a man owns nothing, he's not considered wealthy, right? But if a man owns a lot, like if you meet somebody and you say he owns and controls, 1,000 acres or 1,000,000 acres of land and 50 hotels and blah blah blah, right? Would that be a rich man? Yes or no? Yes, that would be a rich person. You say, yeah, they're rich. And how do you know they're rich? Oh, because he owns this and she owns that and they have this and their family owns that, right? That's how you know wealthy people. So one of the things that wealthy people do from a very basic fundamental standpoint is they acquire things. They gobble things up. They hoard things. They say, I want to buy this. I want to own that. I want to get access to that. Right. And then what a lot of wealthy people do is they don't sell anything. That's why the Forbes list is kind of shaky, because a lot of wealthy people they laugh at the Forbes list because they're thinking, you can't tell me what my net worth is because you have no idea how much my assets are worth. Why? Well, because the way you determine the value of an asset is somebody has to buy it and sell it. There must be a transaction. So if I have some land that's been in my family for the last 30 years, and yeah, you can get an appraisal maybe, but you really don't know what it's worth until I sell it. If I own the Cleveland Browns, and my family's owned the Cleveland Browns since they were sold for $5,000 back in the day, but now they're worth billions. Do you really know what the Cleveland Browns are worth? I mean, you can guess. But what they're worth is what someone is willing to pay for them. So there has to be a transaction. The almost like the wealth has to come outside. Like coming outside is when you sell something, right? That's how I look at it, almost like coming outside. The wealth has to come outside for you to even begin to even see what the economic value truly is. We don't, my wife and I won't really know the value of our house until we actually sell it. You could tell us in theory what you think it's worth, but that theory the rubber has to meet the road, right? So basically, if you're talking about building wealth, the reason that we talk about buying stocks, I start with the fundamental assumption that your goal is just to acquire things and to just own them so that builds your wealth. And so as the value of your assets, the value of what you own starts going up, your wealth starts going up. And then what a lot of wealthy people do is a lot of them never sell anything. They do a strategy called buy, borrow, and die. Buy, borrow, and die basically means that they acquire the asset, and then they borrow when they need money. They don't sell it because they don't want to pay taxes. They borrow against what they acquired, and then they die. And then when they die, they pass it to their kids in the trust, and then the tax basis adjusts upward for their children. So their children, it's like a little bit like reparations, how there are a lot of people who say we should never pay reparations because we never owned slaves. Well, a lot of wealthy kids say I shouldn't pay taxes on this asset because I didn't own it. I didn't buy it. I didn't own it when it was worth less. I didn't get those capital gains. My dead parents got those capital gains. And so you shouldn't tax me on money that was made during their lifetime. That's literally what happens. So effectively, people sell assets. They tend to sell stocks under a few specific conditions. I sell my stock either if I just need money. You got to buy stuff. You got to pay a bill. You go on a vacation, whatever. You can sell some stock, do something like that. What else would lead me to sell a stock? If I think I found a better investment, if there's something out there, if my stock is earning me 10% a year and I believe this other investment is going to give me 20 or 30% a year, then I might sell stock and just transfer my capital over to something else, right? That's what capital is supposed to do. That's capital preservation. These are some of the key fundamentals of investing, is that you preserve what you have, you preserve your capital, you protect your money. So when you see people, making it rain and showing off how much money they have by showing how much they can give away, that people like that don't tend to have a lot of wealth because they're kind of doing the exact opposite of what a wealth builder does. Wealth builders don't give away their money; they acquire money. The other reason that I might sell stock would be for diversification purposes. Like if I have some stock, like in 2021, I had a lot of stock, and that stock went up in value by a lot. And I told my wife, I said, I want to sell a bunch of our stock and buy some property because we need to put our money over in real estate in case the stock market crashes. And the stock market did happen to crash a year or so later. So I was very happy to have gotten some of my money out of the market before the market started to drop. Okay. So those are 3 reasons you might sell. But really, if you don't have to sell, I'm a believer that you shouldn't. I believe you just you hold it and you just leave it there. A lot of one of the biggest mistakes investors make, in my opinion, is overactive investing, right? Where you feel like you have to do something. I got to buy, I got to sell, got to buy, got to sell. No, you don't. You can just sit there. You can just sit there and just buy it and have it in there. The $5 a day investing plan, again, I can text that to you. Just text the word stock to 31996. If you text stock to 31996, I'll send it to you. It's very easy to apply because 80% of it is just sitting there. Literally all you do with this plan is you set auto deposit on some investment account where you're buying into some sort of mutual fund on a regular basis, at least $5 a day or $35 a week or $140 a month. And then you just never sell what you buy, right? And I even tell you what to buy. You can buy SPY or VOO, Victor Oscar. Those are a couple that are good. Another one that's good for AI stocks. It's a good AI ETF called the ticker symbol is AIQ. So you go and you buy these assets, you sit on them, and you just make sure you don't sell. And then what happens mathematically, theoretically, based on history, is that after 10 years, your child has about $29,000 liquid. After 20 years, your child has about $100,000 liquid. After 30 years, your child has $250,000 liquid or close to it. It might be 230 or 210 even. But the point is that you're rich. You're doing good. Your kid is not poor anymore. And I talk about this 1,000 times. A lot of you have heard me talk about it, but I encourage you to not feel like I'm being redundant, because sometimes we got to hear it over and over and over again for it to really sink in and for us to finally apply it. Like my flight instructor repeats the same things to me over and over and over and over and over again, so I can commit it to muscle memory. Okay, pull the rudder, okay, pull out the carb heat, okay, pull back on the throttle, and we do the same procedures over and over and over again. Because here's the thing: this is the wealth hack that I want you to understand that a lot of people don't get. A lot of what you do economically is driven by habits and culture. That's what it is. There are plenty of people who know what to do. It's just that their habits betray them. They like, if you say, hey, you should go to school and graduate and study every day, or study hard and do well. Well, if that's not their habit, if their habit is sleeping until 2:00 in the afternoon and procrastinating, then that's what they're going to do. So your habits will cheat you out of your destiny and your birthright. Like, I was talking to my sister about this is a real conversation we had today. I kid you not. And I'm not ashamed to kind of mention my family is having probably the hardest year we've ever had. I'm going to be honest about that. A lot of health problems, going back and forth, checking on mom and whatnot in the hospitals and stuff. And I told my sister, I said, I'm really learning now how valuable it was that you made the decision to stick it out and finish medical school. Because I remember when it was a 50-50, or in fact, it was probably 70-30 against you finishing. And we talked to you about it, and you'd made the commitment. And I remember you passing all those tests and doing all that stuff. So now, because you are a doctor, you can go talk to those doctors about what's going on with mama. And also, you got friends who are doctors that can call our parents and talk to them about medical stuff. And that's a huge privilege, and then I told her, I said, I remember when it was 50-50 whether I was going to finish my PhD, but because we were instilled in our blood, was instilled a culture of work ethic, stick with it. Don't quit. I remember, I would come home too long and my parents would say, no, you finished the job. You started school. You go back, get your ass in that car and go back to school. You have to finish. I finished. As a result, I'm able to do certain things for my family that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Right. And then I thought about someone else I knew who came from a different background. It wasn't a family that believed in sort of dedication and hard work and commitment and focus and staying on the course. She went to college, had a scholarship, had a nice little apartment, a car, all these other things. Next thing you know, the rent isn't getting paid, so she's getting evicted, crashes the car, pledges a sorority, doesn't study, gets pregnant, and then 10 years later, she's a single mom with 2 horrible baby daddies, right? And really, I thought about that and I said, wow, this person's life would have been completely different if they had just a little bit more discipline, and discipline is not something that that only white folks are allowed to have, right? We have the most discipline of anybody because look at what we've gone through, look at what we have to overcome. And so I would encourage you to really think about those things first, because that's the real hack. Once you get that stuff, then the rest becomes easy. A disciplined person can sit down and read whatever book they need to read to learn what they need to learn. A person with the right habits is not going to have a hard time implementing the $5 a day investing plan. It's not hard. We got 4-year-olds who understand it. I could explain that plan to a 4-year-old in 3 minutes. But this is literally a pathway out of poverty that is that simple. It is not even hard. Right. But unfortunately, it's hard for me because I'm in this world where people are feeding you a bunch of crap, a bunch of lies, like, oh, it's so difficult. And once you're poor, you're just kind of stuck. And what they're doing is they're suppressing your habits. They're killing your mindset. And so if you don't believe me, like if I come up and say, no, actually, I'm a doctor of finance, and I can tell you, if you just do this one little tweak, then your family will be fine. You're going to have plenty of money. People don't believe me because they're like, oh no, it's impossible because everyone my whole life has told me it's impossible. So that's what I want you to really think about is anything that you want to do or any level you want to go to or wherever you want your kids to go to. I really encourage you to look at the culture around you, look at the habits you've established and see if those are if that's a culture, if those are habits that lead to wealth, positive outcomes, healthy outcomes, intelligent outcomes. And if it's not, then maybe there's like a little tweak you got to make. Okay. All right. So anyway, let me keep going here. Do you suggest buying stock in any African markets? Asked Franchetta. I don't know of any African markets. I don't know how well developed the markets are in Africa yet. Hopefully they'll be better developed. I'm going to do some research on that though, because maybe that's something we could talk about. But I remember when I was in school, there wasn't a lot there in terms of easy stock markets to invest in. I know also a lot of you talk about, like investing in Africa and stuff like that. And I went to Ghana, and I specifically went to Ghana with a bunch of rich people. One of the guys in our group was a billionaire, and everybody else had money and stuff. And we were over there, and I was really kind of exploring the idea. I'm going to go back because I love Ghana. I had a great time. And I was trying to explore, like, what does that look like to do business in Ghana? And the problem that I am seeing with that is that there is an undeniable difference in terms of like the way the perception of time that I noticed, at least when I was there with the people that I saw. I can't, and this is not to typecast. You can't, typecast all of Africa, right? It's very diverse. But I remember things happening, and this happened several times, where I was with some guys who were pretty much type A personalities, like they were all wealthy because they're like on it. Time is money. They're those types of people. And so they would tell us like, okay, meet us down in the lobby at 10 a.m. and we're going to leave at 10. So I would get there at 9:50 to make sure I didn't miss the van or whatever. And I kid you not, 2 or 3 times we would leave like 12 o'clock. And honestly, at first few days, I was getting pissed. I was like, come on, this is crazy. Come on, what's going on? I'd be reading a book, I'd be on my phone, I'd be calling, my wife or whatever. And then eventually I just said, you know what, you're probably too wound up. So I think that we might be a little more uptight than the rest of the world. I do believe that, right? But I also think that uptightness that may have the negative side effects of like, stressing you out and stuff, it makes us really productive. Like if you're having a couple of meetings and you're trying to get stuff done, you're like, you're going to get stuff done because you're like, okay, come on, time is money. I didn't pick up on that when I was there. And I'm going to tell you, by the time the trip came to an end, I just kind of gotten used to this idea that nothing would start at the time that people said it would start. It was just a fact. So on the last day, one of the guys in the group said, yeah, we're going to have a goodbye dinner at 6 o'clock. And we wanted to know, Dr. Watkins, you can come to the goodbye dinner. And I was like, okay, well, how long is it going to take? And he said, oh, it's not going to be like the last 3 times we went out. It's going to be fast. We're going to get there. We're going to call the restaurant in advance, order our food in advance. They're going to cook it all, have it ready. We're going to come out, say goodbye, get our food, bing, bing, eat, and then go. And I said, and I just laughed and I looked at him. I said, you make it sound so simple. And so we get there. I kid you not, this is a true story. And again, it's not to typecast all of Ghana or all of Africa at all, right? And it's not even criticism. Maybe we're the ones who need to chill out a little bit. So I'm not being disrespectful on this at all, because I love Ghana. The people there were so wonderful. But so check this out. Here's what literally happened. We get there at 6. I'm thinking the order's been placed, the food is cooked. The order has not been placed, the food has not been cooked. So I'm like, okay. So it takes, 30, 45 minutes to get all the orders. So we're talking, whatever. My food, we got to the restaurant at 6. I'm not making this up. I got my food like a quarter till midnight. Did y'all hear do y'all hear me? I'm not kidding. I literally got there at 6 and got my food almost 6 hours later. I could not believe it. I was hungry. I was hangry. I got on the phone. I'm calling my wife across the ocean, cussing up a storm. I mean, I'm mad. I'm heated because I'm like, I've never had to wait 6 hours for this. Is crazy. So this made me wonder, or it let me know for sure that I think that in order for us to be able to bridge those economic gaps, we'd have to bridge those cultural gaps. Right? Like I think anybody in Africa that wants to do business with Americans has to learn how Americans do business. Anybody in America who wants to do business in Africa needs to know how Africans do business. And we got to meet somewhere in the middle, because I'll tell you, I'll just be honest with you. I've never functioned in that kind of environment before. I've never been in a space where time was just a concept, like it's like no, like I'm obsessed with time. That was how that's been the story of my life. When I was in college, when I was kicking everybody's ass and I had the best grades and all that, I was the #1 black student on the whole campus, and I had a triple major, and I was taking all these classes and still making good grades, and I worked on 2 full-time jobs, and people didn't understand how I did that. You know what it was? It was because I mastered time. I started thinking deeply about at 19 how much time we have. I said, okay, there's 168 hours a week, and that's so if I take out 50, if I sleep 8 hours a night, that's 56 hours. 56 minus 168 minus 56 is 112. So I have 112 hours left. If I'm in class 15 hours, that's 97 hours. If I study for 40 hours a week, and that's good enough to get me good grades, I still have 57 hours left. So I can work, I worked 1.5 jobs basically. I could work full time, make plenty of money, hang out with my girlfriend, play basketball, and all sorts of stuff. The key thing was I learned not to waste time. And that became my obsession. So in a way, when I view time, when I tell you guys that time is money, that's more than just an idea. That's more than just a concept. And in fact, financially speaking, when you look at models and stuff, when we calculate how much money a person creates, how much wealth a person builds, time is the #1 variable in those equations. Time, and that's the biggest thing about building wealth that is a misconception amongst the people that you might talk to or hang with or listen to, is there are so many people who talk about making money very quickly, and I don't know how to make money quickly. I don't. I mean, I know kind of do, but I don't really know unless you get really lucky. But it's very easy to make money slowly. It's like if you're making I don't know, sweet potato pie or something. If you have the ingredients, then and you know the recipe, then it's easy to make sweet potato pie. But what if somebody says, "I want you to make me the best sweet potato pie, but I'm gonna take off half the ingredients. We're not using any sweet potatoes, right? We're not using any pie crust, right?" That becomes a difficult pie to make. It's really hard. And they're like, no, instead of pie crust, we want you to use aluminum foil. And instead of sweet potatoes, we want you to use carrots and dog food, right? And you're like, I don't know how to make sweet potato pie with carrots, dog food, and aluminum foil. And so a lot of times when it comes to making money, the same way you talk about making sweet potato pie, people leave out the key ingredient. The key ingredient in making money is time. But if you have plenty of time, then it's like the sweet potato pie. If I got a whole closet full of sweet potatoes, I can start a sweet potato pie business because I've got all the sweet potatoes in the world. So if you've got time, which is what your children have, then you can make all the money that you want. It is not hard to make money if you have time. If you do the right thing, plant the seed, let it grow, money will be everywhere. But no one really talks that way. I don't know why, but it's culture. It's culture. That's why I talk about culture in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. A lot of the conversation is about wealth culture, and what that means. What are the rules? How do you kind of operate when you're building wealth, right? Okay, so let me answer a few more questions, then we can bounce out of here for today. Antoinette, how do I sign up for Blag Enough? Well, if you go to Blag Enough, BLAGGENUF.com, you should be able to just kind of join just by going to that URL. If you go to that URL, there should be something there where you can put in your information. And I like Blag Enough because you can actually find people in your area. And I would encourage you to click around and kind of mess around with it. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So yeah, it's spelled BLA. Somebody type it in, please. It's 2 G's and 1 F. So it's BLAGGENUF. And the reason I came up with the term, we trademarked it and everything, is because we were like, are you Blag Enough? Are you Blag Enough to be up in here? Right. So that's where Blag Enough came from. All right. So Crystal, how should I determine the amount of shares to purchase? Should I try to purchase a minimum of 100 shares of your suggested picks? No, Crystal, there is no minimum number. One of the other picks, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, LVMH. I talked about that on my Instagram. With that one, the price of the stock is like $968. So you may just buy one share. But remember, if you buy one share of a $1,000 stock, that's the same as buying like 10 shares of a $100 stock or 20 shares of a $50 stock. Okay. Don't think that because you have more shares that you own more of the company. Companies are like pizzas. If I take 2 pizzas of the same size and I take one of the pizzas and I chop it into 4 slices and the other pizza I chop it into 800 slices, and I say, well, you can have 4. You can only get 1 slice of the 4 slice pizza, or you can get 20 slices of the 800 slice pizza. You want to get 1 slice of the 4 slice pizza because the slice is still bigger. 1/4 of the pizza is bigger than 20 pieces that are 1/800th of the pizza. Do you understand? Right. So effectively, don't get caught up in, the price and making you feel like you own more because you have more shares. No, it's arbitrary. Companies just decide how they want to split their stock price, and that's just it. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Thank you, Keith and Tony. They say well said. The Patillo family. I just love y'all. Y'all got one day. Y'all got to come to the convention because I got to see what y'all doing. I need to shake your hand, give you a hug, and hear your story because I'm really inspired by Black-owned families. Like I'm so inspired by Black-owned families. Right? Your Black-owned businesses are awesome, but the Black-owned business should be an extension of the Black-owned family because the Black-owned family is a Black-owned business. And so effectively, if you really learn just what you're sitting on and all that power and wealth and potential you're sitting on, you would understand when I tell you that anybody that has a stable marriage and children, you're already millionaires. You just have to learn how to extract the wealth from that, or extract the money from that $1 million package that you've created. That family is really a critical aspect of wealth. It's so important. We talked about that before, so I won't belabor it. But believe me when I tell you this. All right, so let me see here. Oh, Antoinette says I'm already a member. Okay, good. All right, so let's see. It looks like APLS stock has dropped 53% in the past few days. Is that why it's now a good buy? Yeah, a lot of times stocks will just drop a lot, and effectively when the price is below what the value is perceived to be, that's considered to be a mispriced stock. But there's a whole set of theories about whether or not that actually works all the time. But I did some research with the analysts, and I liked APLS, Apellis Pharma. I think it's Apellis Pharmaceuticals. Why do I keep saying it wrong? But I bought a bunch of the shares last night. So if it Apellis Pharmaceuticals, yeah. So if so if it doesn't recover, then we'll go down together. None of this is guaranteed. I can tell you that. All right, so let's see here. Do I have any particular stockbroker I prefer? I use E-Trade and E-Trade and Robinhood and Merrill Lynch. But really, I think Ameritrade is good. Charles Schwab is good. Even Webull isn't terrible. Stash is fine. It kind of depends on the style you want to use. Whatever you pick, I would kind of focus on the ease with which you can use it. Just learn how to use it. Be consistent. Automatically deposit and look at the mutual funds first. That's why I would start with mutual funds, because that way you can get a mutual fund is like a multivitamin. I take a multivitamin every day, right? And you look at this multivitamin. This is called One Daily Multivitamin. And the reason I like multivitamins is because I don't have to worry about getting every single vitamin. I don't have to go take a different pill for a different vitamin. I can take one vitamin. It has everything, right? So these multivitamins, they have, it has vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D3, vitamin E, K2, B1, B2, B3, B6, B12, biotin, and I can keep going down the list, calcium, all kinds of stuff, right? So a mutual fund does the same thing. It allows you instant diversification, and you get a chance to own a lot of different assets at one time. Again, my two favorite mutual funds to get started on the $5 day plan is our Victor Oscar VOO and SPY. Okay, which is I'm learning the phonetic alphabet for my airplane training. It's let's see, Sierra Papa SPY Yankee, Sierra Papa Yankee. So I got to learn the phonetic alphabet, because when you're making those radio calls when you land in the airplane, you got to talk to the tower. All right, so a couple more questions and I'm going to get on out of here. When will today's class be uploaded into our course? It'll be uploaded by tomorrow. In fact, I'll try to load it right after we get done. Where can we purchase XRP? I believe you can get it on like Coinbase. Let me know if you can't. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I sold my XRP. I sold a big chunk of it. I didn't sell all of it, but I got tired of holding. I don't like to hold risky, illiquid assets, and I consider XRP risky because in case you don't know, XRP was a crypto that was tied up in litigation where the SEC sued them, claiming that they were an unregistered security. Well, XRP just got out of jail. And like when Tupac got out of jail, Tupac had the number one album. It was a great album. You should have been there. And but it's similar to XRP. XRP came out like Tupac. The price of XRP shot up. I sold the majority of my XRP, not because I don't believe it has a future, but because I just really don't want to be connected to something where XRP again, like Tupac, just because you got out of jail doesn't mean you can't go right back in. right? You remember, you get out of jail, you're on parole. They're watching you like crazy. They're filing new charges. They might appeal your case, right? So the guy that gets out of jail may not be out of jail for good. XRP is not out of jail for good. XRP may go back to jail. That is not over. Believe me. The SEC is pissed. They are angry. They're going to keep on fighting. They're coming back for XRP. So I just wanted to get out of it. I don't like to be in the middle of drama when it comes to investing most of the time. That's why I moved away from Disney. Disney is one of a few companies that reminded me of that saying that I've heard where they say, go woke, go broke. 3 major companies that have all done things that are overly political and overly woke-ish. And it's funny, woke used to mean black, right? They used to be a black term. Now woke means just liberal, right? Liberal stuff. So Target, Bud Light, owned by Anheuser-Busch, and the third one, Disney. Those are 3 companies that have all embroiled themselves voluntarily in the middle of enormous political controversy that was completely unnecessary. All 3 of those companies have been killed by their stock price. All 3 of them. Anheuser-Busch is no longer, Bud Light is no longer in the top 10 of beers that are consumed. They lost billions of dollars. Their stock price has been in the toilet for at least a year or 2. Target, their stock has plummeted the last 3 months. That was a good company. The other one, Disney, anybody who's held Disney stock for the last 5 years has lost money. That is embarrassing considering that most people made money during that time. If you own stock in Apple, you made money. If you own stock in McDonald's, you made money. If you own stock in Google, you made money. If you own stock in Microsoft, you made money. And what this gets to is that there's been a long-held debate in finance about what the job of the CEO and the board of directors really is. Is it their job to make the world a better place, or is it their job to just make sure shareholders are, get wealthier? I don't like either one of those objectives, to be honest with you, because I think that when you talk about just making the shareholders wealthier, you're forgetting about the other stakeholders in the business. There are other stakeholders, like there are employees you got to think about. There are customers you have to think about. There's the environment you have to think about. There are suppliers you have to think about. So if all you're thinking about is the shareholders, then you're going to miss the boat. You're going to become too capitalist and you're going to end up hurting people. The problem is they went too far in the other direction. You saw companies getting involved in political controversies in a very divided country where they should have just stayed out of it. Look, if you sell beer or peanuts, why in the hell are you picking between the Democrats and Republicans? That is the most volatile, messy area to get involved with, unless you're okay with just losing money. If you've written it off and you say, you know what, I'm okay, I could take the hit for that, then that's fine. I get it. Right. For example, Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A says, hey, we're Christians, we're conservative. We might lose some customers because of that. We're losing money because we're not open on Sundays. But remember, Chick-fil-A is also not a publicly traded company. They don't have an obligation to the public to do anything. Right. Only obligation they have is to sell good, safe chicken and good lemonade and fries or whatever they sell that makes people want to keep coming back. They do that very well. And they got enough customers to help them stay rich. If Chick-fil-A were a publicly traded company, then I would not encourage them to be political or to say things about, marriage being between one man and one woman. That's not your business. You're not supposed to say it. Just sell your chicken and shut up, right? So effectively, Chick-fil-A, they did run into the controversy, but they knew what they were getting into, and they were okay with the economic consequences of taking that position. That makes sense. Disney is not in that position. Disney is a publicly traded company that has shareholders like me who are sitting back and saying, why in the hell are we picking a fight with the governor of Florida, to satisfy your ego? I didn't like that. I sold my Disney stock. I used to talk highly of Disney, but actually, and I still admire the company in various ways. I admire the history and I love learning about, how they became what they became. But as a stock, I can't recommend it because it's like, you're not even good at making money. It's like when they tell an athlete, like, shut up and dribble. That's not right? The athlete shouldn't have to shut up and dribble. He should be able to say what he wants and still dribble. But that's assuming he does his first job, which is to win basketball games. So if you're LeBron James and you decide, I'm not going to shut up and dribble, I'm going to dribble and I'm going to talk. I can talk while I dribble. That's fine because LeBron, was winning championships the whole time he was talking. Whereas Sha'Carri Richardson, the poor thing, last year, she was doing a lot of talking, but wasn't performing on the track. And it became very annoying because people were like, you're not even that great of an athlete. Why are you doing all these extra things when you're not even doing your primary job? But now, in case y'all been watching, I don't know if y'all noticed, Sha'Carri Richardson is lighting it up right now, by the way. Y'all got to watch her. She's going to be in the World Championships in Budapest. And I think she might actually beat the Jamaican women. She's that fat. Like, Sha'Carri is breaking records and killing it. So shout out to Sha'Carri Richardson. It looks like somebody got into her head. She got some good mentorship, and she's going to be able to resurrect her career. She's probably going to lose a lot of money, though, because of the mistakes she made last year. Like, I think last year she could have signed some, 10, 20, 30, $40 million deal, maybe with a cannabis company or something, right? But now what's going to happen, in my view, is that companies that think about signing her to an endorsement deal are going to say, she's kind of risky. We don't know if the old Sha'Carri is going to pop out, so I wonder how that's going to play out for her. But in terms of talent, I'm telling you, she's second to none right now. Like, I'm a track and field fan, and I pay attention. Like, I got really excited because I ran into Gabby Thomas, who was the world champion in the 200 meters, and I saw her in line at Chick-fil-A or something, and I recognized her because she had the New Balance sneakers, and I know she's sponsored by New Balance, and I was like, I was all fanned out. I didn't even tell her who I was. She don't care who I was, but I was like, I was so excited. So anyway, so track is my thing. I used to be a track coach. All right, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and I saw. Okay, so Antoinette, and the last question I about Disney, bring that for class next week. There are two more questions I did see that I'm going to answer, and then we're going to get on out of here because I got to actually run to a meeting. Let's see. Someone says, how did you get your family to invest with stock options? My family don't understand what selling covered calls means. Please advise how I can explain it to them. You can, if you want to, bring your family to class. If you're in the class, you can bring whoever you want. Like, there's one person, James Wilson, who is a pastor, who is teaching this to his whole church. And I said, he asked for permission, which I thought was very respectful. But I said, great, teach the whole church. In the Black Business School, we don't, we're not going to fight you over protecting intellectual property and all that. We have to raise money because we're building a black-owned version of Harvard University. And the focus will be on the Black community. We can do this. We're doing this, but it takes money to do these things. That's why everything isn't free. But if you want to bring your cousin or your siblings or whatever, that's okay. Like, bring the family, because if you make it more of a family thing, then you're going to have more success than if you do it as an individual. So if anybody wants to know what we do in the Prime program, feel free to go to drboyceprime.com, drboyceprime.com. If you use the code word Dr. Boyce, you can get 20% off almost anything in the Black Business School, all one word. All right, last but not least, Otis, what do you think about Palantir's stock price growth? I haven't looked into it. Let me see here. Palantir. What has Palantir done? Palantir is a good company. I have researched it enough in terms of knowing that I like their business model. It's a stock I would, that I would look at, seriously consider buying. Okay, it looks like they've had a lot of growth lately. Now let's see, over a 5-year period, 94% growth over 5 years. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, this is good. So it looks like it's making a comeback. I think Palantir is benefiting, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Palantir is all about AI. Don't they do something like with military, like top secret military stuff or something? So here's what my thought on. Here's my conspiracy theory on AI and Palantir. And I may get this wrong because I have to double check what Palantir does to be precise. But actually, let me see here. It specializes in big data analytics. Okay, I think that they do military contracts, if I'm not mistaken. So here's my theory, right? We have the AI that we know about, right? We have Chat GPT and robots and cute stuff that we see on Instagram. I bet this isn't even a drop in the bucket compared to what they can actually do. Like, I think between the US and the Chinese government competing with each other, and the way China literally has no holds barred on their exploration of AI, they're not sitting around doing what some of our people here are doing, where we're debating like, should we stop the development of AI until we decide if it's ethical or not? The Chinese don't care. They're developing at warp speed, and they're praying. I think that they're praying that we're gonna have a pause in development, because China is they love AI in part because they can spy on, it takes a lot of energy to spy on 1.6 billion people. So AI will help them do that. But I think it goes so much deeper than that. So Palantir is a company that I suspect benefits tremendously from what's happening with AI. And I believe Palantir has access to technologies that we won't even know about for another 10 years. Okay. And what's the ticker symbol for Palantir? Let's see, the ticker symbol is PLTR. PLTR. It's not a bad company. The stock's up a little bit. So if you think it's going to cool off, then maybe you can wait. Or if you think it's blasting off, then maybe you buy it now. There's no way to really understand exactly one way or the other. But maybe one thing you could do theoretically is if you wait for a day when the market's generally bad, a lot of the stocks will move together. They call that systematic risk. So a lot of the stocks will drop at the same time. And in that case, you might be able to find you some good bargains that way. So maybe one good investing strategy could be to have some money to the side so that when they announce like, oh no, the stock market went down, it's gone down 4 days in a row, maybe that's the time to get in. Right. But then the problem though is that when the market's going up like this, it could be the beginning of something big. You could be watching a momentum event kind of happening where you might wish you could have bought Palantir for 1792. So I would say that if you like the company and you like the fundamentals, think 5 years ahead. And I would feel personally that a company like Palantir that has a good business model will most likely have a higher value 5 years from now than it does right now. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. It was so great. I'll be back next Tuesday for Stock Market Tuesdays. So feel free to join us there. Also, if you want to stay connected, my Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. So feel free to go to Dr. Boyce Finance on Instagram. The All Black National Convention, don't forget, it's October 20th in Atlanta. You can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. And also my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. You can go to boycewatkins.com and take a look at all the stuff I have there. There's a ton of stuff just on my website that can help you. Some of it's free, some of it's not. Most of it's low cost. So feel free to go to boycewatkins.com to take a look at some of that stuff too. All right, everybody.